Not something I normally do, but I followed this pattern to the letter. Hello and welcome back. It is another week in November. It is November 8th. This year is flying way too fast. Last year about this time, I made a pumpkin quilt coat. I will link it somewhere here. Here's a picture of it, all the pretty things. It is to date probably, with the exception of my Winifred cosplay, one of my better videos. So I think all of you guys have seen it. If you haven't, please go check it out. Shameless plug. I genuinely do love quilting. It is one of my passions, and I do it quite a bit in my downtime. I don't really film myself quilting a lot because I kind of get in the zone and I'm not really thinking about all of the things. And so I forget that I'm supposed to do the YouTube thing. This particular video is going to be more of a chat, shall we say. So I made myself this quilt coat last year, and I also made my mom one for Christmas, which is slightly different. And of course, my little mini-me has to have one. It took me this long to get it done because I really wanted her to lock in exactly what she wanted before I set out on making it. So this is the pattern that Faye picked out. She specifically said that she wanted the hood, and she wanted the longer sleeves, and she wanted the longer hemline. So that's what we are doing. Very much so said that her stipulations were she wanted it to be mushroom core. She wanted the predominant colors to be olive green and purple. I found this fat quarter bundle online, and she fell in love with it, gave me the green light, and I was able to proceed with filling in the blanks of finding other greens and purples that matched what her vision was. I was able to pull a lot of it out of my own personal stash, and then I kind of filled in the gaps here and there with the occasional fat quarters. The other thing that she really decided she wanted was for the coat to have a pattern, but to not really look like it has a pattern. The longer you look at it, the more the pattern comes out at you. She wasn't really sure exactly what she wanted. And so for me, I instantly gravitated towards a block called the Disappearing 9 Patch. Now, the Disappearing 9 Patch is really easy to make. And by shuffling together all of my pieces of my Disappearing 9 Patch, I was able to make it even more scrappy to give her exactly what she wanted. So let me show you how I did that. The first step of making this block is making a symbol 9 patch. My blocks are comprised of 9 6-inch squares so that it will be 3 by 3, and they're all sewn together to make what's called a 9 patch. Now, the order of my 9 6-inch squares doesn't really matter because we're going to shuffle this whole thing up anyway. The next step is to actually cut this in half. Because these are 6-inch squares, I know that the seam allowance is 1/4 of an inch, and so what's left is 2 3/4. And so I'm just using my 3-inch ruler, and I'm putting that seam on that 1/4 inch line, and so that leaves me what I need. What I would typically do to make a Disappearing 9 patch is rotate these 180 degrees. But since I want an even more scrappier look, I'm going to replace some of these with other blocks from other 9 patches. When I select my other blocks to go into this, I put them down in the order that they would have gone into if I was doing a standard Disappearing 9 patch. So my 2 little blocks are in the middle and on the outside on the opposite corners. But as far as like my prints and stuff like that, my goal is just to make it as scrappy as possible. And then these 2 get sewn together, these 2 get sewn together, and then this gets sewn together as one piece. I made 15 of the 9 patch blocks, and so then once they were quartered, I ended up with 60 of these 1/4 9 patch units. I completely shuffled them together. The only thing I really paid attention to is making sure I didn't have things touching. I didn't worry about direction. I didn't worry about too much of the same color. I really just wanted to make sure that it was as scrappy as possible. So once I had 60 of these quarter units, I sewed them all back together in my full block unit. I now have 15 of my full scrappy disappearing 9 patch. These then get sewn together 3 across by 4 down. I now have to sandwich this with my batting and with my backing fabric. After creating a quilt sandwich, I did a edge-to-edge quilting on this. It's just swirls, and then I threw in a couple of different mushrooms. They're all basically the same mushroom, but I made the dots in different locations just to kind of be cute. This is now my yardage to cut all of my coat pieces out of. I basically followed the pattern to the letter on this one. So, not something I normally do. During the assembly process, I covered all of my interior seams with strips of bias tape that match my backing, so that way there are no raw edges on the interior. Once I got the entirety of the coat assembled, I was able to then go around the entire perimeter with a olive green bias tape that complements all of the colors of choice. And I did a quick whip stitch on all of the insides of. And then for my button loops, I really didn't like having these ends exposed, so I put another strip of bias tape over them just to kind of keep everything protected. Again, because I don't like having anything raw on the inside. And these are again finished off with a quick whip stitch. And then my little woodland sprite selected wood buttons to complement her woodland themed fabric. So I am absolutely in love with how this cute little coat came out. It is delightful. It is aesthetic. It gives all of the whimsy and all of the fun that is being craved in this house right now. And my kiddo is thrilled with it, and I think that that's primarily what matters. I don't know that there is anything that I would change about this pattern particularly. It's a great little pattern, and I get why it is showing up as a resale everywhere for many doll hairs. All right, my friends, thank you so much for joining me this week. If you are still sticking around, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Do all of the things down below, and I'll see you guys next time.